Great. So my name's Jan Richards and I am from the Literacy and Reading Standing Committee. And you're not supposed to be seeing me tonight. In actual fact, I am here just as a participant, but we've had a bit of a glitch with technology. And Megan Harper, who was going to chair this session, is still trying to get in. So please forgive me for stepping in because I know that you're wanting to see somebody else. And I'm going to now move on with the program because we know that, you know, time is precious. Now I'm going to have to throw to Atlanta because I'm actually not sure who is speaking first. Now there is, sorry. Atlanta, yeah?
It's me, I'm first, Jan.
Okay, well, Atlanta, you go first, and I've got a message here from Megan, and while you're speaking, I will put her in, and she'll be there, and she'll be much more glamorous than me. She'll have a face on, and she won't be sitting in her dog walking clothes. So there we go. Lovely to see you all, and Atlanta, over to you.
Thanks, Jan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. My name is Atlanta Meyer. I'm from Perth, Australia. I'm the Library Coordinator for Allenbrook Community Library. I'm also the Secretary of the IFLA Literacy and Reading Section Standing Committee. I'm going to talk to you tonight because it's tonight here where I am, about the Sdg Book Club. The Sdg Book Club was launched in April 2019 and uses books to encourage children ages 6 to 12 to learn about the Sustainable Development Goals. This book club wasn't created due to the pandemic or because of the pandemic, but it is a good resource to use while we are in this pandemic. During the presentation, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to the book club. I'm going to tell you what is available, talk about the Sdg Book Club blog, how to organize your own book club online, and where to find all this information. So first, with the introduction, the selection committee works together to select for each of the 17 SDGs. Just for those that's not aware of the SDGs, these are the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The selection committee is currently busy with the selection of the SDG number 13. The committee includes members from the United Nations, the International Publishers Association, the International Authors Forum, International Board on Books for Young People, the European and International Booksellers Federation, and the International Federation of Library Associations. I'm currently on the selection committee for the English reading lists representing IFLA's literacy and reading section. Reading lists include fiction books, non-fiction, and any other genre to help educate children about the SDGs. Although the selected books are suitable for children aged 6 to 12, we encourage everybody to read these books, including adults, teachers, librarians, parents, grandparents, to help children understand the importance of the SDGs. So what is available? If you go onto the Sdg Book Club, and I will share this information later in the chat, I will put the links up for everyone to have a look at. We've got the reading list for each SDG in all 6 official UN languages, and these include Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. The resources that's available include promotional materials. These are banners, bookmarks, and also an easy-to-print sign-up sheet to invite people to join a Sdg Book Club. You can also sign up for updates, which are available on the website, and you will receive a monthly email with all the updates that's happening. So how do you organize your own Sdg Book Club online? Detailed instructions, ideas on how to assist you to get started you will find online, especially now as the world faces a pandemic and the difficulties we experience to connect with each other. I will go into more detail about the online book club later in my presentation. This is a snapshot of the Sdg Book Club blog that is currently available on the website. This features stories from Sdg book clubs from around the world. If you already have a book club or you are planning to start one, make sure you share your story on social media using the Sdg Book Club hashtag and also tagging UN publications. The current slideshow shows the first two stories that's currently available on the blog. I encourage you to go and read these stories. They are very encouraging. There's lots of good ideas, and there's lots of ideas for people to start their own and to encourage children to read and to learn about the SDGs, and also to promote and share books with everyone. Maybe you can contact your local library, school, or bookshop, and you can organize a session with them. So let's go back to the online book club. How do you organize that? There's a very detailed sheet available online, and I'm just going to touch a little bit of those points and go through them. And then later on, if you are interested, you can just go online and you can look at all of those. So during the pandemic, we have times where we have to practice social distancing. We have to stay away from family and friends for a very long time, and it's hard to sometimes connect with people. So why not organize an online book club where you connect virtually and you can read together? So these are the few steps that you can follow to get started. First, you need to start with a book list. And as I said before, there's already book list for up to SDG number 13 available online. And you will get some great ideas about the type of books that's been selected for the book clubs. So take stock of the book that you have. Maybe you can visit your local library and find out what books are available, talk to teachers. If you need more inspiration, you can go online and see what's available for all the different themes that they use in the SDGs. There's hunger, there's injustice around the world, there's all the different ones available on the website. Then you need friends to join you in this book club, and you need to invite them. These can be family friends, it could be classmates, teammates, it could be people in your community. So decide how many people you want to include in the book club. And one of the ideas that they give us is not to include too many people. Keep the book club smaller, then more people can participate during the session. Post something on your school or community notice boards. Send messages to family or friends to include them in your book club. Also share what motivates you to start this book club. What are the goals? Why do you want to achieve this? Maybe you want to spend some more time with your family or friends, or you are just looking for a way to learn more about the Sustainable Development Goals. The fun part is to find a name for your book club and to discuss your ideas with your friends. Maybe everyone can come together on the first session and have a few ideas just to pick a name for your book club. Also set goals to make sure that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. As I said earlier, it might be that you want to learn more about the environment, or how to preserve it, or how to live a more sustainable future, or it might just be that you want to share some books with family and friends. The next point is to create your own rules. And there's just a few ideas on the website available that you can use. I'm not sure how many of you are part of a book club, and sometimes there's lots of challenges. Some people like to take over, some people don't read the book, some people aren't interested, they just don't say anything, they're just scared other people might disagree with them. There's always that one person that never say a word, or there's that person that always takes the session over and no one else can speak. So make sure that you set some ground rules that everyone is in agreement with. Some of the ideas is to make sure that you have those goals set out. Decide which books you're going to read. Maybe that's a good idea to decide beforehand who's going to pick the books, maybe take turns. Also, what do you discuss? Do you discuss the book? Is there some pre-prepared questions? Is there a presentation? And will every person have a chance to chair the book club? You can also include other activities, some fun activities if you want to do that. You need to decide how often you're going to meet and also on what platform. Is it going to be, if it's a book club that is going to include people from all over the world, then you might need to consider time zones and all those things. The challenge that we face today with this is to select the books. Many libraries around the world are still closed, and not all books are available online. So I think this will be one of the biggest challenges probably is to find books and to see what options are available if there isn't anything available online. Then you have to decide on your online meeting tools. How are you going to meet? Who's going to set up the meeting? Is it going to be a webinar like we are doing right now? And we all know that there is lots of technology challenges when it comes to these. What platform are you going to use to communicate with each other between your meetings? Are you going to use something like WhatsApp or Google Hangouts, a Facebook group? And then also to agree on the platform that you are going to use when you are going to meet for your monthly meeting. Then also to write a to-do list for your meeting to make sure that you cover all grounds. If the meeting is 40 to 90 minutes, to make sure that everything can happen within that time. So start with introductions to make sure everybody knows each other. Then you can dive into a presentation if that's what you want to do, or you can just start with some questions or a general discussion about the book. It's important to encourage everybody to participate and to let everyone finish speaking, so not to interrupt each other, and also to be able to allow time for questions if there's questions that comes up. So you need to keep it going. How many people have gone to a book club and maybe it's 1 or 2 sessions, and after a couple of months, the book club dies down, less and less people comes, life gets busy, and people just don't have the time to attend. So how do you make sure that you can keep it going? It's important to try and stay active, to try and communicate, say thank you to everybody, maybe send them a little card to thank them for joining. Make sure that people are part of the book club. Everyone gets an option to select the next book. Then also if you want to have activities, get people involved, and also keep a journal where you can record everything that you've learned during this process. And then the last point is to share your accomplishments. So make sure that you can share these stories using the SDG Book Club hashtag, and also to tag UN publications. And then your story might be a feature on the Sdg Book Club blog. So lastly, I will tell you where to find all this information. All the information that I've shared with you tonight has been information that comes from the website, and that is the website. It's the Sdg Book Club website. And I've also included the IFLA Literacy and Reading Section Standing Committee. That link over there will take you to all the committee members. And if you have a question, all our contact details are there, and we are happy to provide you with some more information. And then those are the hashtags for social media, and also the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter page. I will also put this information on the chat, and you can get it from there. And then if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And I'm sure at the end of the presentations, there will be some time for questions and answers. Thank you, everyone.
Now, Megan, are you there? No, okay. So Atlanta, can you give me a hint as to who's next?
Kate is next. It's Kate. Kate.
Kate. beautiful Kate Irvine, who from New Zealand is going to speak to us about the project that is happening at the community of readers from the National Library of New Zealand. I'll ask Kate to introduce herself, but to me, she is, I think of her as a colleague that I had a great time with at the IFLA conference in Singapore. I remember being in Raffles in the bar there and drinking Singapore slings and tossing peanuts on the floor. So but she's going to have a much more focused presentation now. So Kate, over to you.
Thank you, Jan. Tēnā koutou. Hello, everyone. I hope you can see my slides and can hear me okay. So I'm Kate Irvine and I work for the National Library of New Zealand. I'm the Program Manager for the Communities of Readers program and the other national reading initiatives that we have underway at the moment. So mostly today I'm going to be talking about communities of readers, but before I get to that, I'll just talk very briefly about the other initiatives that we have running alongside it. We, as part of our Growing a Nation of Readers strategy for the National Library, so Hei Pārito is the Nation of Readers National Reading Summit that is going to be held in June this year in Wellington. And we're also about to announce the first reading ambassador in New Zealand, Te Awhi Rito, and the person will be announced in a couple of weeks' time. So I've just put the picture there of Jacinda Ardern, our Prime Minister, who announced a few months ago, announced the establishment of the Reading Ambassador program, which was fantastic. So Communities of Readers is about engaging children and young people with reading for pleasure and well-being. It's a series of 4 projects that have been running for coming up to 2 years now, a little bit less. So the funding has come separately to the National Library of New Zealand. It's sort of extra funding on top of normal funding. And so it started before the pandemic. And so the program has been running across the pandemic time, which has extended the timeline a little bit, but not changed it a lot. Each project is with a different type of community. They all have high needs. The scale and scope, the age groups are different across all of the 4 projects, but they all have a lot of collaboration with local partners and agencies, and it's that mix of the national and local working together. We also have a research program that runs across the whole. So we're collecting learnings for our services in the future. So the proposed outcomes from Communities of Readers are to just show what we can do if we join up the national and the local, if we're trying to improve reading outcomes for children. The other outcomes are around the sustainable reading outcomes, of course, for the people directly involved in each project, but also, as I mentioned before, the learnings and what works in different kinds of communities that we can reuse. There hasn't been in the past a lot of research around reading for pleasure in New Zealand, and so this is adding to that research base as well for us to join with the international research around reading for pleasure and the value and impact that it can have. And also the Communities of Readers is part of the general national reading initiatives across the board that we're trying to increase the understanding with other government departments, with stakeholders in all sorts of different ways. I'm just showing you quickly here a summary of the 4 projects, but I'm going to concentrate on the project that's in South Dunedin. But just to show you a quick snapshot of the 4. So the West Auckland is a schools-based project with 5 urban primary schools in a high needs area of Auckland. And Huntly is with Huntly Secondary College, which is a rural secondary college, which is particularly disadvantaged. So those two projects, those two schools-based ones, a lot of the focus is around the role of teachers as readers and teachers as role models, and about whole school kind of cultures of reading. Canterbury is the project that we started most recently and is working with a whole district, city and surrounding district, but we're working with a very specific group, which are the young people who are in state care, in the youth justice system, or on the edge of care, which might mean that they're being actively supported by different kinds of care agencies. So working with them and their caregivers to inspire a love of reading. Just moving on to South Dunedin. So this is the project that I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about. It's the biggest project with the biggest group of children and young people that we're working with. I've just put the map there so you can see that Dunedin is right down the south of New Zealand. It's the second largest city in the South Island, but it's still not very big. It's 126,000 people. And South Dunedin is the sort of the lowest income and the most ethnically diverse area in Dunedin. Dunedin is a very beautiful little city with quite steep hills around it and looking out over the bay and the ocean. And everywhere in Dunedin has a view except for South Dunedin, which is the sort of floodplain at the end of the harbour. And it has had major flooding in the past, has old housing stock prone to damp and cold. But there is actually quite a sense of community and identity in South Dunedin, quite a strong heart. Our project started with some co-design and interviews with the community in South Dunedin. The Methodist Mission Southern, who is one of our partners in this project, did this co-design work, and they developed their personas just to help us through this process of understanding the different types of people in the community. The partners in the project are Dunedin City Council, the local government area, which includes the Public Library Service and also includes the UNESCO City of Literature Office, because Dunedin is a UNESCO City of Literature. Our other partners are the Ministry of Education, the Runanga, which is the local iwi Maori groups in that area, and Methodist Mission Southern. So that gave us a lot of information about how reading is seen in that community. And from that, we developed a campaign of messages to make reading visible in the community, to encourage young people to read. And for this project, we are focusing on children aged 3 to 7, so younger children. So the campaign has local animals and a kind of local graphic feel. And alongside the campaign, we've been putting, there's sort of programs and messages, talking to lots of different community groups and putting books out into the community. And that's just a picture of our working group, just to show the number of people, the number of organisations who are very actively working together as the core part of this project. But with this group, we have actually been connecting with more than 120 local organisations, which might be early childhood nurses, the early childhood education services, medical and social services are giving out books and connecting to the community, businesses, cafes, vegetable shops, the food pantry, food barn for people who are in need, many different parts of the community are now distributing books as part of this Read, Share, Grow campaign. At the moment, about 10,000 books have gone out into that community, many of them in home languages, languages other than English. And by the time we get to June this year, the end of June, there will be 15,000 books into that community. We've held local gatherings to talk about reading, encourage reading, inspire reading in different community groups. There's been engagement from local media and politicians, and the research part of the project, which is running alongside this, has just in the last few weeks actually done about 50 interviews with community members where we're gathering feedback and responses through the project, and particularly intensely just at the moment. Also part of this has been the public library looking at ways to reduce the barriers for using public libraries for people in that area. It is an area where they are building a new library. There's funding for a new library, but it's still several years away. So this project is seen as kind of seeding towards that library being a community hub in the future. And it's also connected different parts of the community that haven't been connected before around reading and its benefits in literacy and wellbeing outcomes. Just a couple of comments about some of the learnings from the recent research interviews. I mean, so far the project is universally supported, and it is a very positive and non-controversial initiative, giving books out into the community, into homes as far as possible to people who are in need and have not much access. And some of the comments have been around, it's not trying to fix South Dunedin. South Dunedin is the kind of area where different services try to fix things. It's not a fixing thing. It's not linked to deficiencies or failures. It's trying to position as a generous project, a generous giving out and encouraging people to read. There's been great response all through, and we really feel like we are growing champions for reading throughout the community. There also has been very little evidence of stockpiling or any of those things that might sort of skew the project. I mean, I think the generosity is being respected through the community. And we, as part of the messaging, there's also a bus going through Dunedin, which is nice. The project is going. We have been working with the partners, and we've decided to continue the project after the middle of this year, and we're working on what the next stages might look like, building on all of the work and all of the connections we've made into the community. And the research from this project will be coming out in June, along with the research from the other projects. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Our next third presenter is Viv Barton, who's the president of the Australian Library and Information Association in Australia. So we'd like to welcome her.
Thank you very much for that. Let me just share my screen. All right, okay. And okay, so thank you very much. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the lands across Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people, their elders past, present and emerging. And here in Perth, Western Australia, this is the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And on behalf of the Australian Library and Information Association, I'm delighted to give you some information about a highly successful initiative that continues to grow across Australia, New Zealand, and now beyond, National Simultaneous Storytime. So about National Simultaneous Storytime, this is held annually and it's managed by the Australian Library and Information Association. Every year a picture book written and illustrated by an Australian author and illustrator is read simultaneously in libraries, schools, preschools, childcare centres and much more across Australia and New Zealand. And it's usually read at 11 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time across the country. And the first NSS was held in 2001, and in 2021, we are now celebrating 20 years of NSS. In 2020, we welcomed other countries, including Thailand, United Kingdom, Canada, Singapore, and Vietnam. And in 2021, those countries are rejoining us for NSS with colleagues from the United States of America. So it'll be fantastic to have everyone on board. The aims of National Simultaneous Storytime is really about having fun while promoting the value of reading and literacy and celebrating Australian authors and illustrators. So another issue in there is that we're promoting storytime activities across libraries, and it gives us a great opportunity not only to involve library staff and educators, parents and grandparents, but also politicians and local media to help participate in and promote the importance of reading and literacy. In 2021, on Wednesday, 19th of May, 11 AM Australian Eastern Standard Time, we will all be reading Give Me Some Space, written by Philip Bunting and published by Scholastic Australia. As I said before, 2021 is an important year for us with 20 years. We wanted to do something a bit special. And I'm absolutely thrilled to say that in 2021, our book is on the International Space Station as we speak, and it will be read by NASA astronaut Shannon Walker. It's very exciting to do this. This idea came from a library staff member who noticed that astronauts on the International Space Station read children's books and performed related science demonstrations. This is the NASA Storytime from Space program, and it offers a combination of science, literacy, and entertainment. The idea to present NSS from space was pitched to members of the ALIA, Australian Public Libraries Alliance, the peak body for public libraries in Australia, and they said yes. So we're very excited about that. So in getting this happening, it was easy for IFLA and ALIA to say yes, but behind the scenes, there's been a great team at ALIA led by Christina Granata, who've worked tirelessly to bring the project to fruition. And this has involved sourcing partners and funding, getting the actual program accepted into NASA's Storytime in Space program, commissioning an author and publisher, working with NASA astronaut liaison to ensure the book met NASA's STEM themes, sending the book into space and successfully arriving at the space station. Well, we left that bit to the NASA people, but also the media liaison and developing all the marketing collateral. So there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. It's not a cheap exercise, and we're delighted that we've been co-funded by the Australian Space Agency and the Office of the Chief Scientist who've come on board. So it really has made it a cross-departmental initiative. So we're absolutely thrilled. It's also supported by our colleagues in New Zealand, LIANZA, the Library and Information Association of New Zealand, Aotearoa. Behind the scenes, what ALIA does, ALIA selects the book and organises the contract with the publisher for rights and permissions. This then enables resources to be developed, whether they be videos, Auslan translations, downloads, teacher notes, activities and craft ideas, and also developing promotion and marketing of the event. Libraries sign up to the initiative through the ALIA website. And this is one of our authors, 2018, Matt Cosgrove, Alpacas with Maracas, which was a great event, and that was held at Government House. Other connections will be about arranging events with authors, media, sporting personalities, and politicians to participate as guest readers. And that's very popular, particularly with the schools. Behind the scenes, ALIA is also responsible for the graphic design, creating and selling merchandise as well. So libraries sign up and then they have got free access to all of those resources. And if they wish to purchase some materials, they can do that as well. So stickers and all sorts of things are in there that are always very popular. So this image that you can see in this slide here is the actual rocket that took our book up to space. And that was the Soyuz rocket MS-17, which was launched on the 14th of October. I have to say it was very exciting watching the launch, knowing that our book was on board and it would soon be heading to the space station. So before we got there though, we had to get the book accepted into the program. And that meant working with the author, the publisher, and NASA astronaut liaison to make sure that the book had space-related themes, that the content was scientifically correct. But also we've got to remember this is a picture book, so it also needed to be fun. And the book was then something that you wouldn't normally think about, needed to be tested by NASA to make sure it wasn't dangerous. That the inks and glues had to be non-toxic and there couldn't be any parts of the book which might detach and become dangerous in zero gravity. So that's something you don't think about every day. And NASA astronaut Shannon Walker has completed a video recording reading the book, and this will be available on the day. The other thing that we managed to gain out of this was also that the Storytime from Space program includes an experiment that mirrors the book's themes. And so this experiment will be conducted by an astronaut on the ISS and shared with the National Simultaneous Storytime participants. And the activity involves the important issues of climate change and demonstrating that changing the surface of the Earth results in changes to heat balances between the sun, Earth and space. So the citizen science component will be where children are being asked to collect temperature data to match the temperatures across Australia. So it's nice to have that connection there. I'm sure apart from doing experiments, there'll be many libraries creatively organising green screens and costume parties and all sorts of things to kick in with the space theme. So it's going to be a great day. We are really excited for this year's NSS from the International Space Station, and it has really captured the library sector, the community and media's imagination. And I would like to thank all ALIA staff for their hard work in bringing this idea to fruition. Planning has already commenced for NSS 2022, which will recognise Australia's Indigenous culture. But for now, we're looking forward to 19th of May, NSS from Space. Thank you.
Thank you, Viv. That sounds like a really inspiring project. Really exciting. Our fourth presenter is Mia Dimblad from the Library Development and Program Coordinator from Sweden. And she is presenting on, this is my highlight of the week, sharing reading online with colleagues during the pandemic. So welcome, Mia.
Thank you. I don't see click to exit. I see still the slides from Viv's. So, okay. Now I see all of you and Megan in the middle. But maybe you can hear me? I'm not having any slides, just a picture a little later on. So I'm a librarian at in a small town library in Hässleholm town and commune, and there's about 50,000 residents located in the south of Sweden. We have representation from the south of Sweden today. That's nice, and that was thrilling listening to my colleague in Helsingborg, a little bigger city. And you can say that Hässleholm is a small resource town, but in some way you can say it have a little bit of a city's problem. You have a low educational degree, but also there is many people are fond of the library, and it's an important in the local town. And it's situated also in the culture house with other cultural activities. I'm working with a program as a program coordinator in the library, also with the fiction section, and I'm also involved in developing the library, you can say. It's in a small library, you do all the things. And today I like to share with you an example of a pandemic work with colleagues from our that we do in our work. And I can say it's not a big one, it's just a little small one. We are not in space, we are in the works, down below. And I called it, this is the highlight of the week, virtual reading, shared reading with colleagues during the pandemic. I will tell you a little about the method, shared reading, and my work with it, especially the most actual sessions that I have with my colleagues. I have another reading circle, but I will not talk so much about that with visitors, a public one. But first, something about the libraries and the pandemic situation in Sweden, because we differ a lot from other countries in Europe with strategy and so on. All over the world, library closed down and had very limited access in the beginning, already in March last year. In Sweden, we didn't have that much restrictions. So, and in the beginning, so people started to work home when they were in offices and departments and so on. But a lot, I can say maybe all the libraries stayed open, and also with the ordinary opening hours until the end of 2020. For us, for example, in Hässleholm, there was some restrictions for the staff. We used the plexiglass and we didn't help the visitors close when they were needing help with the computers and so on, and just stay away from them as much as we can, helping them. But it was in many ways business as usual. But at last, in the end of October, in order of the community, all libraries in Hässleholm closed their doors for public visiting. Even before that, because many didn't want to enter the library, we had some home delivery and also takeaways from the back door for risk groups. But when the doors were not open at all anymore, so we continue with the services through the back doors in our library and all the 6 branches of Hässleholm. So in the turn of this year, I decided to do shared reading poems, virtual with my colleagues every second week, to keep in contact with them on the branches and use my skills as a reader leader. In our library, we already had a little poetry project, so it was just fitting in there somewhere. So what is shared reading? Many of you are already familiar with the method or the subject, but for those who are not, I will give you a brief introduction. In short, you can say share reading, share meaning. It's a reading and literature promotion concept which allows people to meet and reflect about really good text together. Researcher of the University of Liverpool developed the method, and it's a method and it's a trademark, shared reading. And there is also the reader organization situated. It's a kind of a charity center, national, an agency for reading and health in UK. And every week they promote, or they have volunteers doing shared reading session, more than 500 every week in different places in the UK. And you can say that the method is both reading, literature, and health promotion. And you can do it with readers who are used to read and readers who are unaccustomed readers. And also have various reasons have difficulty for reading themselves. The readers, they have also regularly provides 3 days training for reader leaders in Liverpool or elsewhere. They've been engaged here in Sweden for a couple of times, and I was a lucky one to join one of these classes in 2018. So I can call myself a reader leader. I started practicing with groups in the library, some with my staff just to train, but since last year there are no more outreach activities in the library. But I need to practice the method and use my skills. Sorry. Whew. I just have to take a breath. It's so hard for me because I cannot see any of you. So I'm just talking to a black screen now. So maybe some of you can put on your camera so I see you. Excuse me. Thank you for some comments. And so I just don't see the black screen anymore. Hello, Alison. Thank you. As work from home have been the last year common even by us, we work home about 2-3 days a week, but there is in the library still work and services you still need to be physically present to do. Books don't go back to them shelves themselves. And it's even so that we cope with more books this time because we have to put them together and give them, and it's a lot of things with these physical books. Because there's a lot of eager readers out there. Even if the ebooks have higher levels of lending, it's clear that the reader of the paper books read even more during this pandemic. On branches, our colleagues have to do all work in the library by themselves without once or twice being in the town library with us. So this session with shared reading were more than welcomed. Atlanta, can you please put on the video? Or not the video, the little picture. So here we are doing a session of shared reading. This is the highlight of the week. One colleague made a comment about the session we have together every second week. They are invited to an online session with teams, as what we see here. They got the poems we read in advance. I've chosen it mostly. and they are not allowed to read it before, not even briefly. That is one of the essence on SR, shared reading. When you meet in physically, it's very easy because you just give them when they arrive. I have invited all the staff, so we are different groups every time, but we know each other, and that makes it kind of special anyway. And hopefully, I had chosen a poem they haven't read before, but that is not very hard to find, because you can say there is more poems out there than there are readers of it. Atlanta, you can just, we want to look at it anymore. So I see myself, it's more comfortable for me. To do shared reading together with this method, make the participants from the staff getting closer, and it's reflect the gap between the personal and the professional. It's some kind of fill in between in this kind of communication. That don't mean that you get too private. That is one good thing about shared reading. You get personal involved without being private. You stay in the text, you move on in and out in the words and the whole poem, and also you use the silence. I will give you some pictures from today's session. We had this morning in Sweden, now we are in the afternoon here in the north. So it's just kind of some quotes. We never had time to talk about literature and text in this way together at work. It's concentrating and deep. Gives us a feeling of context and also strength to use the way to talk about text and literature with borrowers that we meet in the library, in reference situation. It's fun. It's a break. It's a breathing hole from lonely work in the branch and the stressful situation in our library. Makes you read poems in another way. Every poem gives a lot of discussion. This time we read a traditional poem from 1944, a Swedish one, from an author called Anna-Greta Wide. It was hard to believe it was written 80 years ago. It's a famous poem called You Have a Life. It was nice to have a traditional text with rhyme. The talk today goes around from what we are victims to our own responsibility for our life, the tension between body and soul, and ended up in what that consistent godness are associated with privilege. And you can never guess before who we will transform to or react in a hard, harsh situation as war, hunger, or threat. Also, like we act now in this situation with COVID, it's very different ways of reacting, and it's really had an influence of all of us. Our session with the poems lasts about for 40 minutes, but a usual session with a novel with shared reading, it's about 1.5 hours. But then you have a break for coffee. And that is one thing in the virtual version of reading circles and shared reading sessions. You cannot have the usual coffee break. It's a social institution in Sweden that we call fika. And it's so important for our culture that fika even has been proposed for a cultural heritage of Sweden. But you cannot ask for everything in these days. And I will promise, I will finish to read a poem for you. And that was one English one that we have in class during the training course. So I will read that. 1 second. The Self-Unseeing, Thomas Hardy. Here is the ancient floor, foot-worn and hollowed and thin. Here was the former door where the dead feet walked in. She sat in her chair, smiling into the fire. He who played stood there, bowing it higher and higher. Childlike, I danced in a dream, blessing emblazoned that day. Everything glowed with a gleam, yet we are looking away. Thanks for listening, and I hope you all get a fika today with someone you like to fika with. Thank you for listening, and it was great to be here in this company. Fantastic, all the thing.
Thank you, Mia. That was very inspiring.
Thank you.
We're going to start the question session, part of this session. So if you have questions of any of our presenters at this time, you want to know a little more information or have something to offer, you can start asking your questions. There's Atlanta, did you want them in the Q&A or do you want them in the chat? Because some people were, does it matter? Okay, so you can start, our participants, you can start, there's two opportunities to put your questions in, either in the chat or in the Q&A.
Megan, there was an early question for Atlanta. And the question was, how do you deal with safeguarding for the children taking part in the SDG online?
Thank you for the question. The person who will be organizing the book club, it will be their responsibility to make sure that they check with parents and caregivers, as they need to set up accounts for children to access the online platforms, and then also to help them to safeguard while they are online. And I'm sure it is different everywhere. Different countries obviously have different platforms or different places for you to use. And it's just important that the organizers of the book club make sure that people take responsibility in safeguarding when they use the online platforms. I hope that answers the question.
Another question. I'm supposed to be gathering questions, so pulling them together. This one is for Kate. You had mentioned that this is the program is very nice because it's not a political thing. But are there any problems? Have you run into anything with the books that have been selected if somebody is unhappy with a statement or a presentation?
I'm sorry that dropped out. Could you do that again, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. Have there been any problems in the books that were selected? Are you not hearing me? Put it in the chat.
I did hear that. Thank you. We haven't had any problems. We have selecting carefully, and we're because the age group is for Dunedin is quite young. It's 3 to 7, and we're aiming for different languages, and we're selecting good quality books, beautiful picture books, junior fiction, things appropriate for that age group. So we actually haven't had any problems. I mean, some of the things we have found in selecting books in many different languages for different groups in the community is to actually find the high quality books in some particular languages and to source them from different parts of the world, I suppose. We have to go much further than what's available in New Zealand. In New Zealand, there is a lot of availability of Te Reo, Maori language and Pacifica languages from Tonga, Samoa, those sorts of areas. But it's harder to find good quality books in Farsi and Arabic languages, books that will be engaging and are really reading for pleasure, not just education. For some of those languages, where in South Dunedin there is a refugee community refugee communities from different parts of the world. So we've had challenges in that way, but not necessarily political ones.
Mhm.
Hello, I can see there's a question. Viv, do you think there's potential for national simultaneous story time to go international? Wouldn't that be amazing? We'll call it WSS, World Simultaneous Story Time. Yes, let's see how we can work together to do that. I think that'd be fabulous.
There's another question for Kate. Great books are getting into the community. Is this linked with literacy skills support and development?
About literacy skills support. It is absolutely linked with that. The research around the world, as you know, shows the benefits of reading for pleasure. And that can be support literacy and other kinds of life outcomes, different education levels. And with the research that we are doing inside the project, that will be supporting that. We haven't been thinking about the broader education and wellbeing outcomes, but absolutely it's connected.
Question for Mia on the share reading method, because shared reading is a term in the United States. It's used all the time, but it does not have a method the way you have. Can you talk a little bit more about what that method is?
So the method, I come into some of the parts of it, but the parts is that you have this leader reader who kind of support the talk and give it with questions and mostly listening. So a lot of things is just to be silent and wait for people to talk about it. And when we are meeting, nobody should have been reading the text before. So we are all fresh on it. Read it several times, maybe in the novels, a part of it, or just stop, reading a part and then stop and then going back. What's here? Where are we? Anything that you put your remark on or things like that. So it's just, so it's a kind of method, but it's not an easy one. And I think that the reader, I've been seeing shows that are on internet, reader leaders, they are fantastic. You can also see on the reading organization's website about it more. And I can understand that they have, so for them, it's, as the shared reading, it's a shared reading with big capitals beginning. So yes, but you can do shared reading with anybody, but maybe you can use some of these or you can do, but they want to keep it in some ways. Maybe not for themselves, but like to be involved in the rest of the world doing shared reading. I heard in Germany, they developed something likely after being trained in Liverpool. So it's a lot about listening and going into the text and the concentration. It's some kind of a mindfulness together, actually. There was this morning when we talked about the sessions, I asked them for these quotes, for example. It was really, they are really thrilled and happy for it. So it's, I can recommend it. I can understand your, okay, thanks.
Do you think you will be able to continue this once everything opens up again?
We were
And your
just
days get
talking
busy?
about that, just having it just half an hour once a week. It's and also online, because then they don't have to go into the library, and that's really not only this time. It's something maybe we will continue with, having more online sessions in meetings and so on, because they don't have to travel. It takes a lot of time from the work, but the best, of course, is to meet physically.
So I will ask Viv another question. Can you put into the chat the link to the program, and on the 19th of May, can anyone sign up?
Yes, I'll type in the link now for you, and we welcome everyone to join in on NSS. Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Those are all the questions I have.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for joining our session on reading during together during the pandemic. Thank you for being a part of this session, and thank you to our wonderful presenters. I think we got a lot of great inspirational ideas and information to take back to our home countries, and it was exciting to hear some of the really inspiring ways that and just how important libraries are in promoting reading. So thank you all for being part of this session. Atlanta, did you have any other reminders for people? Okay. Okay, well, thank you all for the wonderful session, and please join me in giving a clap, clap, clap in appreciation for our presenters and our participants for being part of the session. Be well, everyone.
Stay in. Stay in.